Last develop the world existed, 40 by 40 blocks, one buyer, and Unity was already struggling. This week we fixed that properly. Chunk-based rendering, combined meshes, and a completely reworked interaction system. Because merging everything into one mesh broke literally every way we had of touching the world. Let's go through it. The original generator spawned every block as a separate game object, clean and simple. Click a block, Unity knows exactly what you clicked. Interaction works out of the box. The problem is that Unity has to process every single one of those objects, every frame. Transform dates, render calls, physics, all of it. For every block, every frame. On a 40 by 40 map with height variation that's already thousands of objects, scale that to anything resembling a real world and it becomes physically unplayable. The solution is obvious in hindsight. Don't keep blocks as separate objects. Merge them. One chunk, one mesh, one draw call. The catch, once you do that, you lose the ability to interact with individual blocks directly, which meant rebuilding the system from scratch. The world is now divided into chunks, 16 by 16 blocks each. Each chunk is one game object with one mesh filter, one mesh renderer, and one mesh collider. That's it. Inside each chunk, we first populate a three-dimensional array of blocks IDs. Zeros for air, ones for surface blocks, twos for subsurface. This is the data layer. Then we iterate through that array, grab the mesh from each block's prefab, calculate its world space transform matrix, and add it to a combined list. Because chunks can have multiple materials, grass looks different from stone. We group meshes by material first. Combine each group into a sub-mesh, then do a final combine pass into one mesh with multiple sub-meshes. One object, multiple materials, correct rendering. The collider uses the same final mesh, so physics, raycasting, everything works as one efficient shape, instead of thousands of individual box colliders. Generation runs as coroutine, with a frame time budget, 8 milliseconds per frame maximum. If a chunk takes longer, yield and continue next frame. The world builds in front of you, without you ever freezing the game. Here's where it got complicated. When you recast against a chunk mesh, the hit gives you the chunk game object, not a specific block. The old interaction system looked for an interaction basic component on whatever the recast hit. Now the recast hits a chunk that has no such component, everything broke. The fix required splitting the interaction logic into two paths. Path A, the old system, handles stand-alone interactable objects that still exist as separate game objects, like dropped items or future NPCs. Path B handles chunk blocks. For chunk blocks, when the recast hits a chunk, we take the hit point, subtract a small offset along the hit normal, to make sure we're inside the block rather than on its face. Then use floor to int on each axis to get the voxel grid coordinates. From those coordinates we ask the chunk for the original prefab of that block. The prefab has the interaction basic component with all the block's data, break time, what item it drops, what tool it requires. We read the data from the prefab rather than a live object. The chunk itself is just geometry, all the logic lives in the prefab definition. This also means we needed a way to find which item is associated with a given block's interaction script without knowing the exact subclass. We solved this with reflection. Scanning the scripts filed at runtime to find the first field of type item. It's a bit unconventional, but it means we never have to touch the interactor when we add new block types. What's next? Face calling. Right now every block in the chunk contributes all 6 of its faces to the combined mesh, including faces that are completely hidden by adjacent blocks. That's a massive amount of invincible geometry we're rendering for no reason. Removing hidden faces is the next big performance step, and it also makes the world look cleaner. Subscribe if you want to see. See you in Thursday, as always.